So our first reader today is MJ Fievre, and I have enjoyed hearing MJ read a couple of times, and I'm really excited to hear her work again. She was born in Port-au-Prince, Haiti, and she moved to the United States in 2002. She's the author of Happy Okay, poems about anxiety, depression, hope, and survival. And she's the writer behind the Badass Black Girl series. She helps others write their way through trauma and build community and create social change. She works with veterans, disenfranchised youth, cancer patients and survivors, victims of domestic and sexual violence, minorities, the elderly, those with chronic illness or going through transition, and any underserved population in need of writing as a form of therapy, even if they don't realize that they need writing as a form of therapy. MJ currently writes from Winter Garden, Florida, and I'll be posting links to where you can find her book and her website in just a few moments. But right now, welcome, MJ. Thank you again for being with us, and the stage is yours.
Thank you. It was cool. Usually I see them in the trees, but I saw them in your backyard.
Thank you so much, Judy, for having me. Thank you, everyone, for being here. I'm going to read 3 pieces today. Well, I'll start with 2, and if there's still time, let me know, and I'll read a 3rd one. The first piece is titled Coronations. I was talking to a loved one, and she was telling me that she was supposed to be a twin, but her sister died before birth, and she always tried to imagine what it would have been to have a twin sister. And she took comfort in thinking that maybe her sister was happy wherever she was. And of course, I started thinking about, well, the unhappy life she would have had if she had been born. And this gave me the inspiration for Sonia, where I'm thinking about having a sister who's not able to keep her life together. So Coronations for Sonia. 1. I sat barefoot on the crimson tiles of the lake house to watch telenovelas and learn Latin curses as the crisp mountain air played notes of citrus and wood, and dawn crept low and stealthy over the water in a haze of pale gray tinged with fire. My sister Sonia laughed in a scented mist of smoke, rolling marijuana at the kitchen sink in her pajamas and shapeless hat. Sonia collected Mardi Gras beads, doll chairs, and carnation seeds in a cantaloupe-colored wooden chest, kept images of the Shroud of Turin on the night table, and smoked pot in the sandbox. 2. Sonia called Father Vincent when demon cats came dancing under a window in the bruised, itchy summer morning. The village priest arrived for the exorcism, his plump face the color of poached salmon, his white hair tied into a silky bun. I took in the deep and fresh timberish incense, the smell of white sandalwood, cinnamon, and oak moss. Sonia's coke overdose was on Christmas Eve, 1999. In the crisp sunlight, she used a broken shell to dig out the veins of her wrist, and at the hospital, she talked about heaven in a low voice. 3. From the huge trucks on the lake road, the skinny and tattooed goats hang upside down next to the machetes that will later slice their heads. At 17, I drove with my high school sweetheart on that road. In the yearning silence of the house, I heard the haunting speech of Father Vincent about sin and God's salvation. When I was 10 years old, Sonia and I buried a baby duck in my parents' backyard. We put him in a yellow shoebox with carnations. Sonia read Our Lady of Mercy while I dug a hole in the wet earth. Thank you. The second piece, the first piece appeared in the Miami Poetry Collective, and the second one appeared in the Southeast Review. And this one is actually a memoir piece. It used to be a poem, and then it became a short. And it's about a traumatic experience that I had when I was 8 or 9, and it's a reflection of the political situation in Haiti. It's titled On the Balcony. On the balcony. On the sidewalk in Port-au-Prince, a girl wearing a golden evening jacket fried griot in a pot of oil over a tiny fire and made jumbles of tablet out of brown sugar and shredded coconut. Chickens squawked and pecked the concrete ground cracks, and children with bloated stomachs and orange-tinted hair went barefoot down the muddy path. The children fled when the angry mob gathered in the street, yelling, "Long live Titid," the president priest. They were pushing a man whose body was covered with wounds, bruises, and blood. A loud voice ordered to hold his legs and arms down as a tire was necklaced around him. Before I could say Jésus, Marie, Joseph, flames were licking his body and clothes with their burning tongues. Oh, the pretty colors, I thought, before my brain finally registered that the man was screaming, jerking, with flames that stripped flesh from his hands. He stretched his neck, wept, and twitched. I imagined his skin crackling from the heat, the fire sucking the oxygen out of his lungs to help feed his inferno. Sweat grew like crystals across my brow as the man's hair shriveled and tore away. From the balcony, I couldn't see all of it, but I knew his muscles were melting and that he would soon be a pile of dark gray ashes next to sewage washing through the shacks. His clothes burned and smoldered around the bare erupted meat of his back. I stood there on the balcony, gasping, throbbing, and covered in sweat, and a weak sob leaked from me. I suddenly became aware of another warm, living body next to mine. My mother reached out and hugged me. The man's skin was gone from his hands, his arms, his chest. His shirt had, his shirt had melted into him, taking skin with it. Apologies. The man's skin was gone from his hands, his arms, his chest. His shirt had melted into him, taking skin with it as it dripped onto the ground. Popular justice, my mother murmured. They kill all the Makuts. I never learned who this man was. They didn't reveal his name on TV that night, but they did mention that he had been one of Papa Doc's spies. That's when I started having the dream. I'm always standing on the roof of the Palais National, watching the girl making tablet. I know that safety lies behind me, but I always step off the edge and fall. I've been asked several times, why write this piece? Because it is kind of gruesome, but I think that the role of a writer is to report things that they've witnessed, whether it's very joyous things or the murder of a man. And this piece actually leads me to the next one, which is a short poem about what it means to have the responsibility to represent a people or a family, or sometimes even to represent yourself in front of other people. So this last piece is titled, I Will Not Carry a Country. I will not carry a country. 1. Papa says, where we come from, no one has the luxury of self-loathing. They are too busy rising from rubble and building castles with what lies in the streets. He looks at me like an orphan Mama found swaddled in rags on the doorstep one morning. He asked how this miserable creature, with so many to live for, could choose to wash her cheeks with tears and clear her throat with screams. Mama says, girl, you are like a rubber band. You can stretch as far as you'd like to. I've come to learn that stretched too far, a rubber band will snap. I've come to learn that when I rupture, I become shrapnel, marring the faces of those around me with wounded disgust. 2, I dream of a place where no one knows my name, where I am not beckoned like a pet who knows a trick to make their master's mouth curl into a grin, where no one expects a clever remark or even a smile, where people are more indifferent toward me than towards a loose stone in their path. How kind it would be to be kicked to the curb and left to lie in the dust, where no one can try to reassemble me into something I have no interest in becoming, where I can be free of the burdensome load of carrying a country, a culture, a history on my back. I will carry my fair share, but I can't carry it all, and I am free to create my own place with my own rules, separate from what has been handed down to me. Thank you.
Thank you, MJ. So powerful. Thank you for joining us today. So I believe that Judy put MJ's information, books, and so forth in the chat for those of you who are interested. And I will introduce our next poet. Catherine Esposito Prescott is the author of chapbooks Maria Sings and The Living Ruin. Recent poems appear in Eco Theo Review, Green Mountains Review Online, Mezzo Camine, Nell, Northwest Review, Pleiades, Stirring, a literary collection, Valparaiso Poetry Review, Verse Daily, and West Trestle Review. Co-founder of Swim and editor-in-chief of Swim Every Day. Prescott teaches vinyasa yoga and yoga philosophy in Miami, where she lives with her family. And I know Judy will be putting her information in the chat as well. Catherine?
Thank you so much, Susanna. Thank you so much, Judy. It's great to be with you again. I love the performance poets of the Palm Beaches, and it's always an honor to join you and this incredible community you've grown over the years. And it's lovely to be here with MJ. Thank you for that beautiful, truthful, searing reading. Thank you. I'm going to read a few pieces from a new collection tentatively titled An Ordinary Offering. I think, like most of you are poets here, and I think, like most of you, our job is to report, right, to tell the truth of what's going on, as MJ was saying. And many of us wrote in response to the pandemic, which is the time that we lived through and are still living through. So I'm going to begin with everyone has one, I know, I know y'all do. I'm going to begin with my pandemic poem. So forgive me. And it's titled Earth Day 2020. In quarantine, we noted how the raccoons use the garden hose at night and shift the nozzle to their desired setting, which is shower, a gentle cleansing water, which is opposite to the jet that cleans their scat off the backyard deck under the fence of fishtail palms. In quarantine, saw-toothed sharks, prehistoric predators known for living in the depths of ocean, far from human, swam close to shore, along with nurse sharks and bull sharks. In quarantine, manatees surfaced in pairs. Dolphins leapt out of the water 3, 4 at a time, without the promise of snacks in sight, no prize, no bucket of fish, which tells us something about reward, a thing given for forced labor, and another about joy, how it comes on its own, comes without us begging for it, how it's more like a country, wide and prosperous than a summer fair. Our blind spots are infinite. What we don't know is more cave than dot. When was the last time I moved my body for no camera, no post, for nothing more than the rapture of being? How do I know the raccoons didn't find pleasure in their hose shower? Why do I believe their paw prints are evidence of trespass and escape, not of skilled, choreographed feet? Every mud print, not a direction, not a clue, but a turn toward ecstasy. Thank you. That's my true story about the raccoons. A lot of this manuscript engages, and I didn't realize this till afterward, but it, engages with my life raising kids. I have 3 children, and the oldest is in college, and they're cycling out of the house slowly, which has given me a little bit of time and space to reflect on the process of raising them, which is quite an enormous journey. It's a lot of time. And I raised my children when they were tiny. We lived on South Beach, which is not apparently the most auspicious place to raise your children, but they've got to be raised somewhere. And so this poem is called Abad, South Beach, and it first appeared in Valparaiso Poetry Review. The beach carries scattered remains of the night, a bed sheet, a beach blanket etched in sand. The shore quivers with discarded cigarette butts, ash of weed, ash of tobacco, a soup of bottles, mostly plastic, some glass, water, beer, champagne, more than one condom, crumpled, disheveled, used or not. I walk lifting each item as artifact. I struggle to shelve judgment and my instinct to churn each into myth. Orbs of sunlight reveal chicken bones, fish skeletons, the chipped half shell of a mussel, one ghost crab leg. We combed the beach one year, throwing larger refuse into large plastic trash bags, then sifting through sand for hidden debris, the way we knew how to as mothers, grain by grain, as we parted our children's hair many times that year, lifting knits and eggs from soft threads, from hair which had not yet known gel and dye. That day, my son found a lucky seed from Cuba via Africa, one that holds the evil eye at bay, all who would cause him harm, and a rosary made of brown crystals, each bead intact with a Christ sullen, surrendered, spinning. The ocean washes up more than memory. What is held by sand travels into the ocean's body and returns not as waste, not as sacrament. I would not let him throw them out. How could I? He was too young to know faith, he who had never needed to pray. Thank you. And bookending and throughout the collection goes through a lot of poems about the children and about developing a spiritual life, which I think for poets, it's kind of something that can happen. It's like a work hazard almost if you're an artist or a writer. And also with my own cancer journey, which unfortunately more and more of us are living through, right? Surviving through and growing through. So I'm going to read one of the odes. And this one appeared in Merivoc's ode. They're all called ode, just to make it a little more confusing. The flock of wild lime green parrots, the clusia hedge with fat waxy leaves, the butterfly bush and porter weed, the milkweed which seems frail but hosts dozens of cocoons, the moon which has now set, the sun as it charges over the beach, turning the world on as it rises, using it instead of she, giving the feminine a break. The pen that works, the fingers that hold it, the teenage boys who grow their minds at school, the daughter with unicorn dreams, the husband also rising, the quiet morning, then the raucous afternoon, the evening with its petty arguments, the soccer, the climbing, the gymnastics, the beautiful bodies of children, the athletes who challenge gravity, who move beyond the mind's limitations, the mind that tries to sit still, the body that yokes, the genders, the skin colors, the dances, the songs, the languages in which the same thoughts are set to new music, the engineers and programmers who abet, the artists, the eyes, of course, even as print gets smaller, the senses interpreting, the chance run-ins, the surprise diagnoses, truths spoken, the healers who radiate compassion, the seekers who find new pathways to understanding, the concept of infinity, which I cannot grasp. The universe, unaware of pushing outward. I imagine my mind without boundaries, my heart without boundaries. A wall becomes mirage, a line something to jump over. Infinity on a macro scale and a micro scale, beyond quarks, beyond matter as particles, as energy, as imperceptible waves. What if this unfolds infinitely? What if the cells travel inward forever, the heart and its cosmos, the brain and its cosmos, keeping your world steady. When you pick up the children from school, cook some spaghetti, the children orbiting you, you orbiting them, the spaces between you full, collapsed, breathing in their wonder, you exhale yours. I mean, one thing a diagnosis can do is it can do many things. It can also just brightly illuminate the world around you and everything in it, right? So hence all of these odes. Let's move on. As I scroll through, I see nothing but kid poems. So let's move from the kids a bit. This one's called, I don't know what happened when I was younger. People were getting all sorts of piercings and tattoos, but when I was in my 20s, I had to work. I didn't have discretionary income for anything. So there are a lot of tattoos that I never got. So this poem is called The Tattoos I'll Never Get. I mean, never say never. This could happen in my 50s or 60s. So just put a little asterisk by the title. This one appeared in Northwest Review. The tattoos I'll never get are legion. For my birth, sleeves of mythological beasts, muscled gods and goddesses emerging from the sea. An island for the sirens, a butterfly for when I was becoming, and for the cancer removed, for the sick gland also removed. Yin and yang, from the year I left my religion, the names of old boyfriends of my dead and my babies written in wedding invitation script on my forearms, infinity symbols, a bracelet of laid back eights around my wrist, one for each child and one for their dad, I'm missing hearts, arrows, and stars. I'm missing a Celtic symbol for perseverance and a Sanskrit word to remind me of who I really am. The self beyond groceries and credit card payments, self of the empty mind. This morning, I saw a rainbow backbend over the earth's shoulder. I would like to have this rainbow etched across my back, blade to blade. It would look over the sun inked above my tailbone, spiraled, whirling, and ancient. I imagine my tattoos awake, animated, winking, and whispering on the tapestry of my body. A visual diary of a life well lived or lived like many others. Part real, part fantasy, all of it mine. Thank you. Thank you. And I think I'll read maybe just one more, if there's time. Okay. This one appeared in South Florida Poetry Journal. Thank you guys at Slopo Pojo for all that you've done for many of us, for all of us really in the community. I don't know if there's a poet you haven't reached out to yet. And if there is one, you will find her or him shortly, or them shortly. This was a poem that I wrote, and then I don't know, sometimes we write things and then we put them away because we judge them pretty harshly. And this was one that I put in the depths of my computer. And one day I was just moved to go through some old files and clean up some things as we do. And I found it and I worked on it and I sent it to a friend who said, it's not as terrible as you think. So poets are often said to work alone, and we do to an extent, but often our best moments happen in community.
You found the audio?
So this one is called Ordinary Offering, and it's the title poem for the collection. It's the most beautiful thing we do, she said, which meant carrying a spirit within our bodies, which could also mean being possessed by another. When pregnant with my daughter, I craved chocolate and sex. With one son, it was salted meats and conversation. With the other son, milkshakes and classical music. Each time their spirit left me like a fierce wind, blowing the sail of my body inside and out. For weeks after each birth, I rubbed my empty torso like an unemployed crystal ball whose answers were spent. Since then, scientists have found a newborn's cells inside her mother and a mother's cells inside her baby. Their fear is still my fear, their heartache and their joy mine too. I used to see quickening toddlers on leashes, one parent steering the curious humans away from the street. Every spring, the wild peacocks towed a string of newborn chicks behind them. Furry and dazed, they follow their mothers like soldiers across the cut-through street from meal to meal. Adolescent, they look like every other peacock. Their initial wobble grown to a tall strut. Their full feathered fans open into a many-eyed sculpture, an ordinary offering to any god. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Catherine. If we could just unmute and let's give both of our poets a hand for their inspiring and powerful work. If we